Stay, and I'll hand you a decoder ring for the most radioactive question in spiritual America. Does renunciation betray the American dream or rescue it from its marketers? In 10 minutes, I'll separate monastery myth from civic myth and show you where the clash actually lives. Not between East and West, but between two definitions of freedom. America's favorite slogan is freedom to choose, to buy, to move, to speak, to scale. Monastic life bets on freedom from compulsions that rent your attention by the hour. If you keep watching, you won't get incense or patriot bashing. You'll get a ruthless stress test. When lights go fluorescent and bills arrive, which freedom fails first? Here's the provocation. The United States sells liberty with a checkout button. It trains citizens to prove autonomy by consuming the cart as ballot box, the brand as tribe, the upgrade as absolution. Monastic vows neuter that economy by refusing its leverage points. Sex as hook, money as tether, self-branding as sacrament. That's why monks look un-American. They are inoculated against the country's favorite proof of life, spending, signaling, momentum. But the insult cuts both ways. Cloisters can also look parasitic. No taxes, no kids, no startups. What do you build? If renunciation is a pose, it's cosplay with tax breaks. If it's a real operating system, it should make rooms safer, speech cleaner, and power less able to buy you. So our task is not to chant yes or no. It's to audit. We'll pry open the American creed, self-invention plus expansion, the monastic rule, poverty, chastity, obedience, and the places they swap virtues or sabotage each other, money, sex, voice, time. We'll name the scams, prosperity gospel in red, spiritual bypass in saffron, influencer monks on TikTok, libertarians in robes, and then land a verdict you can measure on Tuesday. If your liberty collapses without carts and clicks, it wasn't liberty. If your vows collapse when democracy asks for receipts, they weren't vows. Choose what you're willing to defend when the music stops. The United States runs on a civic theology. Begin again, grow bigger, prove it in public. Frontier myth plus immigrant grind plus stock market scoreboard equals the national romance. The altar is productivity. The sacraments are mobility and choice. Our saints are founders, athletes, influencers, special forces, single moms with 3 jobs, the canon of hustle. Inside that liturgy, identity is a startup. You raise rounds, degrees, followers, acquire users, friends, mates, clients, pivot when the market shifts. To renounce in that theater reads like brand failure. No product, no pitch, no scale. Freedom here is operationalized as optionality. More choices equals more dignity. The mall, the app store, the ballot, 3 altars, 1 prayer. But optionality has a dark clause. The more you can choose, the more you must keep choosing to maintain the self you pitch. Choice becomes full-time labor. That's why Americans are exhausted. We manage portfolios of micro identities across platforms, jobs, and relationships, then mistake that drag for living fully. Enter monasticism with a different math. It wages dignity not on options, but on constraints chosen once. A vow is a firewall. It reduces the attack surface of appetite and status, so attention can be spent on what isn't for sale: silence, service, clarity. To a consumer nation, that looks like shrinkage. To a nervous system drunk on options, it can feel like oxygen. The scandal is that both are true. Constraints can protect your soul or hide your cowardice. Unchecked choice can express your genius or sell you to the highest bidder. So is renunciation un-American? If American means perpetual expansion, yes. If American means what the Declaration dared, freedom from arbitrary powers, then renunciation can be the most American move available, refusing powers that bought a booth in your limbic system. The fight isn't flag versus robe, it's more versus enough. The only honest side to take is the one that leaves you less owned. Strip the romance. A vow is a contract that changes who may claim you. Poverty refutes the market's leverage. If your baseline is little, advertisers lose their blackmail. Celibacy, where practiced, refuses the algorithm's greatest bait. Obedience, at its best, puts rule over ruler. A schedule and community governance that outlive personalities. In a healthy monastery, these contracts are freely chosen and publicly audited. They restrict agency to raise it where it counts. Attention, speech, presence, service. Drop those contracts in America and you get sparks. Poverty vows clash with a culture that reads low consumption as laziness, unless you're rich, in which case minimalism is chic. Celibacy triggers a nation addicted to romance as proof of personhood and sex as currency. It can look saintly or suspect. Obedience slams into a civic allergy to hierarchy, especially after scandals that proved how obedience gets weaponized to hide harm. Here's the edge. The First Amendment protects religion. Capitalism monetizes it. Courts distrust it when it hides criminality. So monasteries in America must pass a harder test than in pre-modern states. Show your governance, publish budgets, rotate power, hold grievance channels. Otherwise, vows read as feudal cosplay. Adults ceding adulthood to charismatic bosses while tax exemptions foot the bill. And yet, our mainstream obedience is just less honest. We obey bosses, screens, cravings, markets, tribes. We don't call it obedience. We call it the way things are. At least monks admit their ruler and schedule. The question isn't whether you obey, it's which law improves your speech and shortens your harm. If monastic obedience makes you faster to repair and slower to posture, it's liberty by another name. If it makes you smaller, crueler, or stupider, it's a cult in neutral tones. America asks, who pays, who benefits, who decides? Monasteries answer unevenly. Legally, many operate as 501c3 non-profits, donations in, tax-exempt status, housing provided, health insurance often improvised, retirement nebulous, zoning boards squint at cloisters like farms of silence, neighbors panic about parking during retreats, the optics are worse online, free rent, free food, no kids, parasitic. The counter is real but unsexy. Monasteries run kitchens, farms, clinics, translation projects, chaplaincy, libraries, guest houses, infrastructure of meaning. They keep dying rooms honest, grieving rooms gentle, noisy minds a little less armed. That doesn't show up on GDP. Money distorts here like everywhere. Donors prefer beauty and access, new halls, glossy live streams, their name on a bell. Budgets tilt toward spectacle. Maintenance sulks in the dark. Celibacy lowers cost but can raise predation risk when governance fails. Poverty vows reduce personal greed but can mask institutional hoarding. Obedience can optimize labor and conceal burnout. Then there's the platform economy. TikTok monks go viral for ASMR, chopping wood, and cinematic chanting. Gig monasticism sells calm by the loop. Some use the reach to fund libraries and clinics. Others drift into influencer theater, aura without ops. America punishes hypocrisy harder than failure. A monastery that posts serenity and hides abuse will get crucified rightly. A monastery that posts receipts, budgets, audits, clear rules about touch, money, power, earns secular respect fast. Renunciation isn't a coupon, it's a ledger. If your vows lower the cost of care in your county, neighbours become donors. If your vows raise the cost of truth in your house, prosecutors become parishioners. The country does not hate monks. It hates being asked to underwrite mystique. Pay in public or expect America to collect in headlines. Before we declare monastic life un-American, open the file. Shakers built furniture and celibate utopia in a republic barely born. Their architecture still instructs. Trappists carved abbeys into hills and businesses into silence. Cheese, bread, beer, caskets, ora et labora. In Kentucky and beyond, Catholic sisters ran hospitals and schools that became the backbone of health and literacy, especially for immigrants the nation despised. Thomas Merton wrote Solitude into the American canon. Dorothy Day wed radical hospitality to Catholic asceticism. Across the Pacific Lane came Zen in California garages, Vipassana in New England barns, Thai forest in the Midwest, Tibetan centers in Colorado and New York. Monastics stood in civil rights lines, war resistance circles, AIDS wards, refugee churches. Thich Nhat Hanh brought into being to a country bombing his. He taught veterans to breathe with ghosts in cornfields. Renunciation in America is not an import. It's a minority tradition that keeps rescuing the Republic from its addictions: speed, noise, spectacle, certainty. Did monks also fail? Constantly. Abuse, feuds, racism, guru capture, fiscal fog. But the archive proves a point the culture wars refuse. You can renounce without leaving America, and you can love America without worshipping its market. The best monasteries act like civic organs, filtering panic, metabolizing grief, training attention, cooling speech. That's not anti-American. That's infrastructure. So what does the dream look like if it pauses the sales pitch? A nation where some citizens opt into a discipline that makes the rest less alone. Not by preaching against the mall, but by building a different room. Quiet, cheap to run, honest about power, porous to need. Renunciation is not a referendum on patriotism. It's a refusal to let the price of belonging be your soul. Let's burn the excuses. Celibacy is not inherently abusive. It is high risk without governance. America's suspicion is earned by churches that weaponized vows to silence victims. The fix isn't slogans, it's ops, supervision, training, outside reporting, consent protocols that treat power gaps as radiation, not romance. If a house can't publish those, don't call it a monastery, call it a vibe with robes. Freeloader monks, sometimes true. Vows can shelter the incompetent and the cowardly. But work in America is fetishized. Unpaid caregiving and dying room labor barely register as value. Many monastics do that invisible work. The honest audit again: do your vows lower harm in a measurable circle? If yes, you're not a freeloader, you're a civil servant in cloth. If no, you're a brand in a quiet costume. Activist monks trigger the right, stay out of politics. Quietist monks trigger the left. Where's your spine? Both sides miss that democracy is maintenance, not mood. Some monasteries feed protest with stamina and give city halls rooms to cool down. Others hide in timelessness while neighbors drown. Renunciation that refuses contact with policy becomes aristocratic cosplay. Renunciation that forgets silence becomes rage with beads. The straw man says America demands sex, money, and noise. Therefore, vows are treason. The mirror says monks demand obedience, deference, and myth. Therefore, America is corrupt. Both are lazy. The country asks for receipts, the cloister asks for limits. Where they meet, citizens get saner. Where they posture, citizens get hurt. Forget slogans. Put both freedoms in a hostile room and watch. American freedom promises you can choose your way out. Under stress, choice turns to scroll. The self fragments into tabs. Anger buys you identity while fixing nothing. Monastic freedom promises you can stop agreeing with your appetites. Under stress, vows either hold, reducing reactivity, keeping speech clean, or they fracture into theatre. The test isn't mystical, it's Tuesday metrics. Latency. How fast does attention return to contact when provoked? Leakage. How much harm do your words bleed when you're right? Repair speed. How quickly do you confess, restitute, and change ops after being wrong? Governance. Can power be questioned without exile? Are budgets and bodies safe? Porosity. Do strangers get safer because you exist? If American liberty fails those, it's not liberty, it's permission with PR. If monastic liberty fails those, it's not renunciation, it's anesthesia with incense. The country is an experiment. So is a cloister. Both deserve to be graded by outputs, not imagery. So is renunciation un-American? Ask the room. If vows lower harm outside the monastery, they're patriots in plain clothes. If they only polish insiders while outsourcing mess, they're tourists with tax status. The Republic doesn't need monks who hate it or influencers who cosplay as them. It needs adults who can sit still without becoming useless and move fast without becoming cruel. America sells freedom to until you can't say no. Monastic life sells freedom from until you forget how to say yes. The cure is not a treaty, it's a choice of ruler. If you're ruled by appetite and algorithm, your red, white, blue is just a brand palette. If you're ruled by vows that hide harm, your saffron is just camouflage. Liberty is what remains when neither can buy your mouth. So here's my line you can test under fluorescent light. Renunciation is un American only if America means nothing but shopping. If America still means a people who refuse arbitrary powers, then a clean vow is a declaration signed in the nervous system. Keep your startup if it helps. Keep your robe if it works. But publish your receipts. Less harm, faster repair, strangers safer. That's the only anthem I trust. If your freedom needs a cart to feel real, it's a subscription. Cancel it or it cancels you.